I haven't given an update in a while on this playlist that I created about me burning my class to the ground. I am recording this video at let's see, in quarter one, 2024, and have had some weeks under my belt with the new course design. And I had trouble and was feeling sad and discouraged and frustrated, and just had a very wonderful set of news this morning that made me motivated to come and share an update with you. I'm actually sharing a slide deck that I'm going to be sharing with my colleagues where I teach coming up here about things that I'm experimenting with. And I figured I could just use this same set of slides to share with you what has been going on with my course. And yeah, so, all right, so here's a little bit of how things have been going. But before I do, I just want to caution you that I'm not going to go a whole bunch into how-tos on this. I might do, well, for sure, I'm going to do how-tos later on in this video series. So I invite you to just kind of get more relaxed and see what I'm playing with and use it to expand your imagination. And by the way, some of the things, I mean, they're just other people have expanded my imagination so much. And rather than pick 24 things, like I sort of jokingly did to try to make a list thing, which some people really don't like listicles, but it's not a listicle, but I know some people will think it is. But anyway, pick one thing. Don't pick 24 things, pick one thing. Yes, so here are some things. I'm not speaking about myself in the third person here. Again, these slides are for colleagues, and if I just said I'm experimenting with, they wouldn't know who the I was. So I'm also going to attempt some ratings. They're not going to be very good ones because I'm not even sure I like the scale, but I'll comment on each of the things, how they're going for me. So I've been experimenting with AI generated images. One of the things that's really deeply rooted in my values is that when we're going to go on a learning adventure together, as in you're going to take a class that I am assigned to teach, then I like there to be this surprise, this delight. And with some AI generated images, we certainly got that. Now, you might be like me when you see an image like this and think, oh my gosh, that's incredible. Did she make that for her class? This is artificial intelligence, and you can see that artificial intelligence, as of this recording, doesn't spell very well. Look at the word university, little problems there. And if you were to look up close, there's all sorts of problems with these AI generated images. But they certainly did capture the attention of the students enrolled in my class. Maybe it wouldn't in the future because this will just become second nature, but it's been a blast to experiment. I haven't only done Lego kits, but I've done some other ones. This is just kind of the idea of like thinking of ethics in terms of dichotomous choices. It's a business ethics class, by the way, if you're not caught up on that. So, you know, this was something that got generated. And then if you look closely at these, lots of problems with spelling and other things. Still having fun, but my goodness, still some serious limitations. So my rating is that it's promising, that it's also easy. So I guess it's on fire, but there's also ethical challenges with artificial intelligence, broadly speaking, that certainly need to be taken into consideration and certainly do come up when you're generating AI images. I also started a class Instagram account. It's too soon to tell you how this is working for me. I did this off of Mike Wesch's work. He has a website, Anth 101, for his cultural anthropology course, and he has a whole very fancy thing where the feed can come in. I don't have a very fancy thing here. I have an Instagram account, a color scheme, and have been posting some images. It's been fun, but there hasn't been the kind of student interaction yet, and I'm not even sure how far I will get. So very fun though, super easy to do. You can easily set up a second Instagram account. If you have one already, you can easily set up a different one, which I did, and it's been really fun. So speaking of Mike Wesch really wanted a simple structure. He has in his anthropology course, his Anth 101, he's got 10 lessons and 10 challenges, and I set out to do exactly that. And oh my goodness gracious, it's already paying off so much. I feel free. I feel light as a bird, free as a bird, light as a, I don't know, I'm mixing up my metaphors here, but amazing. Thank you, Mike Wesch, for your inspiration. He has each one of the lessons distilled down into just one or two sentences. And I didn't get to one or two sentences this time around, but I aspire to do so and to really have that tight integration. But I did create 10, it's actually 11 because there's a 0, 0 to get started on both the lessons and the challenges, but essentially 10 lessons, 10 challenges. I can't recommend this enough. It is amazing just to have those forced limitations to really set our creativity on fire. I have been using a quizzing tool for quite some time now, flashcards, virtual flashcards. This time though, I set up a class inside of it so that I could check that people were doing the assignments as we went along on the various flashcard decks. It's kind of too easy for me to say whether it's worth the cumbersomeness of getting them to check to make sure that everybody joined the class and all the things. If it's going to end up being worth it, it's too soon for me to say. It's not hard to do. It's just hard to get that many people to do any one thing without like points being assigned and double checking. So I'm still kind of on the fence. I love Quizlet. It's a wonderful tool. As to whether or not it makes sense to set up the class and have it there remains to be seen. I also have inside of our Canvas learning management system, my university subscribes to Canvas Studio, which is a video platform inside of the learning management system. So having all of the screencast assignments come through there was the idea here for a lot of reasons that I'm not going to go into here. It's too early for me to say here. I kind of am leaning toward perhaps maybe I should not have been thinking as tight that people had to use that particular tool and keep their videos there, but I haven't entirely decided yet, so I'm still deciding. I use a digital bookmarking tool called raindrop.io is the URL. I've been using it for some years now. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. I have something like 35,000 bookmarks. They can all be created in collections, as you can see over here on the left-hand side. They look like folders, but they're collections there. They can also be tagged, and so you can see in the screen that we're looking at here, hashtag, it's a video, hashtag, I'm the one who submitted it. This is, by the way, a shared collection for the class. Hashtag, the topic is sustainability. It's also about technology, so loving this. It's still too early to see how students are using it. Just last week, they set up their Raindrop bookmark and installed the extension. I've invited them to it, but it's still too early for me to say for them adding. But if you're not using a digital bookmarking service, I think you should pause the video and go do that right now. It's amazing. So Raindrop is amazing just for bookmarks, let alone that you can create a collection and share it with other people. But how about for any of these collections over here on the left, I can have an RSS feed, real simple syndication, that can then feed into a page right inside of our learning management system. So the Raindrop bookmarks collection gets fed into Canvas, and then students don't have to leave the learning management system in order to view what other people have been posting here. So it was super easy to set up, really early to see kind of how it's working with, using it as a page. But I mean, I'm pretty close to saying on fire because, our experience so far has been good. I use a RSS aggregator, which is called InnoReader. And so I have aggregated together different feeds about business ethics news or business news in general, which you could, of course, tie pretty much any story to what we're learning about in our class. And so sources such as Reuters or NPR or AP News are all feeding here into this. So this is coming out from major news publications that then also can feed back into our class as well via that same technology. So taking it from InnoReader and displaying it then inside of Canvas so students don't have to go out. I learned about this, by the way, from someone named Laura Gibbs. And Laura Gibbs is so good about expanding our imagination with RSS feeds in general and specifically with InnoReader. So yeah, again, it's still early, but it's going so well. So I talked about the open textbook in my previous video, and I say that I'm being out in the open. It feels oddly vulnerable to be out in the open, and I should probably record a video just about that topic, but I'm a fairly open person out in the public. You could learn a lot about me, and there are some aspects to this that make it feel particularly vulnerable, which I was not necessarily anticipating. So I'm using this tool called LiaScript, and anyone can have what's called a markdown file, real simple text that then can be displayed as a textbook presentation or slides. You can see how those different things work. The presentation doesn't have all the text that the textbook does, and then the slides can actually be read aloud using a screen to text feature. So that's been really fun. And I was inspired by Liz Norell, who she came on the Teaching in Higher Ed podcast and talked about her site for her American government class. This is her liquid syllabus. Liquid syllabus was a concept developed by Michelle Packency Brock, who the idea of like it being fluid and fluctuating throughout the course. And so that was a fun thing to draw inspiration from as well. And it's going so well. I mentioned right before I started recording today that I'd had some technological problem that was really just of my own doing, by the way. If I had just followed directions, I was, you know, how like you're not following directions, but it's just a teeny tiny way you're not following it, and you just don't realize. But there's a wonderful community, and within 24 hours of me posting my challenge, I'd heard back from the person who created LiaScript with some collaborators, and that's, oh my gosh, so great. So I am taking Creative Commons licensed content to curate and create this open textbook. Some of the text is mine, some of the text comes from these Creative Commons licensed materials, and I am excited about how it's been going so far. So this is what the open textbook looks like. You can see on the left-hand side the ability to navigate around, just like the sample I showed you moments ago. If you don't know about Creative Commons licensing, I highly encourage you to learn more about it. And it's going so well. I love that students don't have to pay for any sort of materials for this class beyond the tuition that they would pay for the course. Loving that aspect of it, and it's been going really, really well. So I mentioned it's got lots of features built into LiaScript that just happen automatically. I mean, not automatically, but I don't have to do it. So if you look up in the upper left-hand corner, in this example, I've searched for SIFT, which is Mike Caulfield's information literacy framework for quickly fact-checking information that we would see on the internet. And I could just search for SIFT and see all of the places where I might learn about that. I am so on fire for this stuff. It's been hard, though. I guess I should say it's between on fire and promising hard for me, but today I'm feeling that breath of success. Also, really wanting to limit myself to be really careful about structure. So I mentioned really enjoying the 10 lessons, 10 challenges, but really thinking through okay, how do I do the numbering? And how am I going to make it so that it's easy to navigate where there's not a gazillion things over on the left-hand side, but there's enough that you can navigate to get to where you want to. So that's been good. I've also been making use of a lot of movie clips and TV clips, and some of these were suggested to me through various prompts that I've been typing into ChatGPT 4. I've been using the pro version, and as of this recording, it doesn't actually link over to the movie or TV clips, but it'll suggest some. So for example, suggesting the clip from the 12 Angry Men, a very famous black and white movie from back in the day. And so then I have to go search for that clip and then get it inside of the open textbook. Here's another example that was suggested to me, even though I've seen this movie. That's the thing, by the way. So using artificial intelligence as a assistant, if you will, or an apprentice that I can then go, oh, I saw that movie. Oh, yes, that would be a good clip here. That's definitely a back and forth process for me in this, and it's been going really well. The students have enjoyed watching clips from movies or television shows they do know, and some of them don't know them, but I'm curating them such that you wouldn't have to have seen the movie or TV, and they're really seeming to enjoy that. I'm also using other video clips, some of which were suggested by prompts that I typed into ChatGPT for things like there is a video series that's great from a collection called Concepts Unwrapped. And here's an example of a video about cognitive dissonance. I could have recorded a video of me talking about what cognitive dissonance is and describing it. I'm not going to do as good of a job as they did. It's a fully series of animated, incredible videos that also have their own sets of vocabulary words to become familiar with them. It's a wonderful, wonderful resource. So I'm able to curate those. This is still a course created and curated by me, making use of things that are licensed under Creative Commons. And yeah, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So I've also been doing some review questions. So inside of the LiaScript course, I can use very simple plain text to indicate what questions are, and then which is the correct answer, not just true, false, by the way, but multiple choice and simple fill in the blank. And you can even get fancier with it where you can even have hints for the learner. I have not chosen to do that yet, but I'm just really looking forward to continuing to expand. And I think inside of your textbook, having those opportunities for retrieval practice to reinforce some of the concepts, can't recommend it enough. And so I mentioned LiaScript a number of times already. I am writing in Markdown, which is a simple way of writing text. And I'm using a tool called Typora, but an application called Typora. There are all sorts of applications that you could use to write in Markdown. And so what happens is that when you come into Markdown, what you really would type to get bold in Markdown is star, star, plain text, right? The word design, star, star. So that's what it means to do bold. But I don't really have to remember that, by the way. I could also just use a keyboard shortcut or format using the menu like a normal application would. I'm doing Command B to toggle on and off of bold. But many Markdown tools show you what it looks like once it gets placed somewhere else. But this is where I do the majority of my writing. So it looks like an image, because yeah, it does, but it's just text that then displays that image once it gets rendered. So this particular tool helps me be able to see what it's going to look like once it gets out onto the web. So I've been doing that, and I really, really have been doing a good time. I mentioned how great the community is. The documentation is wonderful. I have been really so thankful that I decided to do this. And it comes out of a conversation I had for teaching in higher ed, and some side conversations too with my friend and good person to think with, Rob Park, who teaches at the University of Southern California in information technology. And so he doesn't use LiaScript, but he essentially has an open textbook for his courses that has some similar parallels to what I've been attempting to do here. So he really was the inspiration for all of this. And the other thing I just want to say about this is just the caution that we shouldn't be experimenting with everything. I talked to you that LiaScript can have the presentations, it can have the slides. I decided I do not have that kind of time to be doing all of that right now, and that I am holding off on using the additional features until I feel more comfortable using the tool. So just really starting with the basics, and I can add on to it in future semesters. So I haven't been doing this. Experimented a little bit, and then I realized, oh my gosh, this is not This is not going to work. I had really hoped that I'd have the entire class done. I do not, as of this recording, have it all done before the term had started. It just didn't turn out that way. So I'm keeping 2 or 3 weeks ahead of students, and I wish I was further ahead. I do plan on carving out some time so I can get to that finishing point here in the coming weeks. But yeah, so not doing things is on fire, truly. Not doing things. Just because a tool can do something doesn't mean we should. So in addition to learning about LiaScript, you need a way to get that Markdown file up to be able to be accessed by LiaScript, which kind of lays on top of, that's my technical explanation, lays on top of your Markdown file living somewhere on the internet. So I'm using GitHub, which is what programmers use to keep track of versioning for their programming, but we can use it really for anything. And I attended a conference where I learned a little bit about GitHub some years ago, but really have never used it that extensively. And it's been, good. I've got GitHub desktop, and when I make a change to my Markdown file, I go over to GitHub desktop and I indicate it already knows it's made a change, and then I push it up to GitHub and keep track of what has changed there. So there's a special GitHub for educators, and I have signed up for that and continue to learn pretty much every time I go and start messing with stuff, learn more about GitHub. And this would be something that I would see be hard for most people if you've never done anything like this before. It was hard for me to get started. It's not hard now that I am started, but that's depending on your technological skills. So when it comes to the 10 lessons and the 10 challenges, what I decided to do was essentially have a template for students to go through them that tells them, go read this part of the textbook and then go do this thing and record yourself doing that. And it's just a little glimpse of what it looks like inside of my Google Drive. We aren't a Google campus, so this is just my personal Google Drive. And it's been going well. I have to stop myself sometimes from making it look even prettier and do all the things. If you look over on the left-hand side here, the yellow parts, that's where they know they should replace that text with text of their own. There's certainly things I would already change about it, but the simplicity of having them go to File, Save as PDF, and upload a PDF, which also would include their links to whatever news stories they may have linked to or videos that they've created, screencasts that they've created. The simplicity of it, it's going pretty darn well, and I'm excited about, continuing to make that better. So I've been really wanting to challenge myself to have students be able to get to know each other in this class. So those challenges and those lessons, they're about, 25% of the time they'll be assigned peer reviews to get to know other people in the class and get to engage with them in some way that doesn't feel as rote to them as sometimes discussion boards can. And as far as how it's going, I've been having some challenges with it just because I like to be flexible as far as people adding the class late, or maybe one guy in my class just got married, my gosh, he fell behind. Imagine that. So it's one of those things that I want to have that kind of latitude, but then if somebody gets behind, it's hard to keep track of and hold them accountable for doing those peer reviews. So far, it's not been going super well because it's just too hard to track who's done it, who hasn't. Sometimes they have trouble getting to them, even though to me it seems really easy when I log in as them and I can see what they're seeing. But yeah, so far I'm saying, it's all right. It's all right. I haven't given up entirely, but it's not going as well as I might have hoped to. And a lot of times we talk about asynchronous versus synchronous. And this, of course, as COVID-19 hit us in early 2020, a lot of people got a lot of learning about how do you build things that are asynchronous. And for me, more than ever, I start with building an entirely asynchronous course that is engaging, lots of opportunities to engage with me, to engage with the students in the class, and really building a rich experience. And then the synchronous is so easy to come in and do, hey, we're going to get together and we're going to do this thing that is designed from the ground up to be asynchronous, but people still do really enjoy synchronicity, getting together and having that as a accountability thing. I know on this day at this time I'm going to make this progress on a class. Sometimes I still remember, if I schedule a time to walk with someone, I'm a lot more likely than if I just think it'd be nice to take a walk. So yeah, so it's been going really well. And I just think about this little, I think these are herbs maybe or something like that, but like it's hard to tell sort of where one thing ends and the other begins, and just that they share some root systems and they're kind of designed to go well together. So I'd say on fire. And I'm using a text expansion tool called Text Expander. And so I love being able to see something that a student wrote or something they asked, or maybe they quoted something from the open textbook. And so I can copy it. It's now sitting in my clipboard. And then Text Expander, I have a snippet that's called You Wrote, You Asked, You Quoted. And then it takes whatever is in my clipboard, puts it into the comments on the learning management system, and then I can just spend a little bit of time then actually making my comment on it. So it's this fluid way of being able to have a conversation back and forth. So I'd say that's on fire. And finally, the 24th thing I'm experimenting with is timers. I've got a timer I can hold in my hand. That's one of those hexagon ones that, depending on which side you set it on, is how much time gets set for it. And I'm doing 25 minutes whenever we hop on Zoom together and do synchronous stuff. Every 25 minutes, we will step away from the computer for 5 minutes. I learned this from Sarah Silverman, who I took a workshop about neurodiversity and neurodivergence from her. And she did that during her workshop. And I thought, I want to try that. And we've been trying it and really, really getting a lot out of it. I can see this recording, by the way, has just gone over 25 minutes. And I should, be stepping away from my computer, and you should too. So let me finish it off and we can do that. I've also used the timer app in Zoom as well. There's a timer app that's now a native app that you can use if you're in the latest client for Zoom, and that works in a different, it scratches a different itch in a different way than the one that I hold in my hand. And so the people who are in your Zoom session can see how much time is left in the session, and then they see it on your screen. You can pause, you can reset, et cetera, et cetera. So it's been going great. I love it. So thanks so much for hearing me talk a little bit about the 24 things I'm experimenting with in 2024 and getting an update on my course. And I so look forward to continuing to share with you on and off about how things are going.